Hey guys, Sean here. Welcome to the F1 Word and to the post-qualifying waffle, or as a couple of you in chat have asked me to call it, the post-qualifying Stroop waffle. There you go. Just for you guys. Just a chance for us to talk about qualifying, what we've seen so far this weekend. Lots to talk about, of course. Really enjoyed that qualifying session. We had everything, didn't we? Red flags, accidents, obviously, because of red flags. We had people go for pole position. Lando Norris had a shot. George Russell was quick late on. Alex Albon was right up there. Fernando Alonso. Oscar Piastri was in the mix. And then Max Verstappen did what he seems to always do, take pole position. So no great surprises there. But fantastic session. Really interesting weekend so far as well. So, I mean, qualifying. When was the last time we had a bad qualifying session? It's usually pretty good, isn't it? So 9 times out of 10 at least. So very, very happy with that one. Hello, people in chat. Hello to Vesk. I remembered to unblock you, mate. There you go. Sorry about that. But good to see you again. Michael as well. Hey to Freeze, to Handyman, to Navipants. Great name. To Thunder, to Max, to Girl Weeb, is it? To Hugh. I'm not reading your full name. Love it. Khalifa, Nicholas, Kaori, Gecko Gamer, James Rich, DJ Red Raven as well. Hey, Red Raven. And yeah, good to see you all this fine Saturday evening almost where I am. So looking forward to this one. Lots to get through, like I say. Only one place. I'll read the order for you. I've not actually done a grid for you this week because we don't have a grid at the moment because the FIA currently have a number of people in with them. We'll get to that in just a moment. But Max Verstappen did set the fastest time in Q3 and therefore took pole position with a 1:10.567. 10.4 seconds quicker than his Q1 fastest time, which gives you some idea as to how quickly the track improved, obviously, as it dried up. And that's an obvious statement, but I'm going to confirm it anyway. Lando Norris, P2, half a second behind. George Russell in third place, 7/10 behind, actually. Alex Albon, absolutely driver of the day for me. Magnificent performance at P4 in a Williams. We'll talk more about him in a moment. He's given some reasons as to why that's possibly where their pace has come from. Really, nobody's expecting that from them at Zandvoort. Fernando Alonso, P5. Carlos Sainz said if you'd have offered him 6th at the start of the session, he would have taken it. So good stuff from Carlos Sainz in P6. Sergio Perez, 7th, 1.3 seconds off his teammate. Discuss. We will do. Yeah, Oscar Piastri, only 8th. I feel disappointed for that because I thought McLaren were going to be right up there and he could have been top 3, maybe top 4, but you know, race pace tomorrow hopefully will be pretty decent for them. Charles Leclerc in 9th and Logan Sargeant 10th place. The first American driver to qualify inside the top 10 since Michael Andretti at Monza in 1993. Bittersweet for him though. We'll get to that as well. Then we've got Lance Stroll, Pierre Gasly, Lewis Hamilton out in Q2, P13, Yuki Tsunoda 14th, Nico Hulkenberg 15th, Zhou Guanyu 16th, Ocon in 17th, K-Mag 18th, Valtteri Bottas 19th, and Liam Lawson, bless him, 20th place on the grid. We will talk more about Liam Lawson, Daniel Ricciardo as well a little bit later in the stream. But all I'll say on Liam Lawson is I'm sure there are lots of people who want to be nice and edgy and make their comments, but don't forget, we cannot focus on lap times too much with him this weekend. It's about getting up to speed in that car. Next weekend in Monza, hopefully dry, and we'll get to see a bit more. But imagine going to bed on a Thursday night, and you're thinking, no, nothing to do this weekend. I'm going to watch some F1, get to enjoy it from the track side, sit maybe on the pit wall during practice. It'll be a lot of fun, learn some stuff, and then suddenly you find out Saturday night you're racing on Sunday and you've got one wet practice session to try and perform in and get up to speed before you go into your first ever F1 quali. I think he did all right, all things considered, but we'll talk more about that a little bit later. But, we always start with Max Verstappen in these streams, don't we? I want to start with Alex Albon. Let's do a positive. Let's do a positive for a change. Why not? On the F1 word, positive. I'm not having it. I punched my desk. I'm so mad. Yeah, absolutely superb. 4th place, 111.4. 8.5 tenths off Max Verstappen. But that pace has come out of from both of them, actually, to be fair, has come out of nowhere. Coming into this weekend, nobody was talking about Williams. And James Vowles said after the session, this is not a circuit that should have played to their strengths. They were not expecting to have the pace here. And I think there was a little bit of a joke between George Russell and Alex Albon. Alex Albon said on the way to Zandvoort that if we're together on track, then you've had a horrible session, because they really weren't expecting much. But according to James Vowles, tyres and balance were in a great place. He doesn't believe would have been their pace in a totally dry session, so conditions definitely helped. And Alex Albon has also said that the headwind really, really helped them today, because they struggled to get the car slowed down for the slow speed corners, obviously, and so that headwind really helped them with their pace today. So kind of one of those perfect storms, quite literally, for Alex Albon and Williams. You've got the headwind, you've got the conditions generally, the tyres and the balance were all working well together. It's just absolutely fantastic to see him up there, and such a great performance. And sometimes you need that in F1. It's not always just about how fast your car is. Sometimes, or you could probably argue most of the time, you need the track conditions to play to your car, don't you? You need those things to work in your favour, and they did today, and he absolutely deserves all the praise he's getting. I fear, unless the conditions are very similar tomorrow, that he might end up going backwards, but surely, what do we reckon, chat? I might do a poll in a minute. In fact, we will do a poll in a minute. Do we think he's got a shot at points tomorrow? I think he'd be disappointed, even if they weren't expecting this pace at the start of the weekend, to qualify fourth and come away with nothing on Sunday. I think he'd be disappointed, but at the same time, if you'd have told me after the preview on Thursday that Williams would be sort of 12th, 13th place on Sunday, I'd say that's not a bad weekend, but it's gonna affect him or he'll be disappointed, not affect him, if he doesn't actually get. I'm trying to type, can you tell, at the same time as talk? It just doesn't matter. So let's just do it. Will Albon score points on Sunday? I'm such a bloke. Multitasking is not my forte. Individual tasks are a challenge on their own. So will Albon score points on Sunday? There you go. Let's throw that one at you. I think that's a good question to start with. Some nice positivity, really great stuff. And I tell you what, this season, I think me and Dan, it was possibly our silly season stream looking at the potential 2022 grid. I think we were both very down on Albon. I think I said in Tomo's podcast that I don't maybe rate him as highly as some people do. But I'm quite happy to sit here, and I'm sure Dan would if he was still on his streams do the same. Quite happy to sit here and say I was quite clearly wrong, because Alex Albon is doing a brilliant job. Great last year, fantastic this year again, and he's got to be one of those drivers now that is, if he isn't already, well, he must have done. He must be in the shop window. Is the point I'm making? He's got to be in the shop window for other teams. I'm thinking 2025. Because next year's silly season is very silly. Lots of drivers out of contract. So I can see, and I know he might have a contract with Williams. I don't know how long that's for, but you can always buy people out of contracts and come to arrangements. So he's got to be on people's radar. If he wasn't already before this weekend, he has to be now. Yeah, all right. This could all look very stupid tomorrow if he bins it at turn 2 or something, but I think ignoring today, this season and last season has been enough to make people go, oh, maybe Alex Albon does need another shot in a top team. Maybe Red Bull, in fact, Red Bull absolutely was too soon for him, but maybe that's what they need. So great performance from Alex Albon, and I really hope he can get some points tomorrow. I think it'll be tough to maybe... Do you think maybe he could sneak top 8 if things go his way a little bit? I'm not convinced on top 6 or anything like that, but just a couple of points would be fine, and it'd be great as well. Logan Sargeant, let's not forget him up in P10. If he could get a point tomorrow, that would be phenomenal for Williams in that battle for 7th in the constructors, of course. But just on Logan Sargeant, what we're talking about, Williams, like I say, bittersweet. Great lap, or really good lap to get himself into Q3. Right at the death, I believe it was as well. So really, really good performance there. First time in Q3 as well for Logan Sargeant. So congratulations to him. But then Q3, good lap on the board initially. Following lap, just sort of the exit of turn 2 on the run to turn. Yeah, it was the exit of turn 2, wasn't it? So on the entry to turn 2, really. Slick tyres. Little bit wider, later turn in than his previous lap. Touches a little wet part of the track. The back end gets away from him. He spins into the wall. Quite a lot of damage. I've put here question mark. Possible penalties is my concern for Logan Sargeant tomorrow, because it was quite... The rear does hit the wall as he comes back round, but I don't know how big that impact was. It didn't look massive, but you've also got to remember that car still hit the wall hard. So things are connected in an F1 car. reverberation, things are going to get shaken about a little bit. So hopefully his gearbox and everything is okay. We'll find out, of course, tomorrow. But there could be penalties coming his way. We'll keep an eye out for that one tomorrow. I hope not. I know it's his mistake. It's easily done. We've seen some very experienced F1 drivers this weekend make mistakes on greasy tracks, so it's easily done. But still disappointing for him, because it was a really good weekend up to that point for Sargeant. So hopefully no penalties for him. But Williams double Q3. When was the last time Williams had a double Q3? I feel like we're going back. Didn't Latifi and Russell have a double Q3 at some stage? I might be completely wrong. I'm sure Latifi definitely got into a Q3 at some stage. But let me know in chat when the last time Williams did that was, because it feels like forever ago. But I don't think we're going back to the days of Bottas and and Massa or anything crazy like that. But feels like Monza 2017. Oh, so it was a fair way ago then. I thought, maybe Russell didn't qualify in the top 10 when Latifi did then. Feels like he would have done, but I don't know. But yeah, so it was Massa and Stroll 2017. Oh, so we are. I was wrong. Thank you, Red Raven, C64, and Jake, and to Hugh as well. Monza 2017. So that's a long time, isn't it? A long time since Williams last got double Q3, but they did it. Disappointing for Sargeant, but great stuff for Alex Albon. I was so happy for him. He's such a nice guy as well, doesn't he? He really, really does. When Stroll started P2 with all the penalties. Oh, yes, the penalties. Oh, the penalties at Monza 2017. Good God. I hope we don't get that next week. I can't keep up with them. We'll be sat here doing a qualifying waffle. I'll have no idea what to say, which is weird. I've always got something to say. Let's just check the penalty situation. We'll talk about that as well, actually, quickly. We've got 3, I believe. 3 incidents been investigated by the stewards. Results should be in for them pretty soon. Carlos Sainz, by the way, did get a pit lane speeding fine as well during qualifying or just before qualifying. So, but under investigation, Lance Stroll for impeding Lewis Hamilton through turns 13 and 14 in Q1. From what I saw of that, I think that's probably going to be. I could see that being a penalty. I don't know. I'm trying to think off the top of my head what it was. It wasn't. Yeah, it doesn't matter. Carlos, I'll come back to that in a minute. Carlos Sainz for almost hitting Oscar Piastri, so dangerous driving whilst exiting the pit lane in Q1. Carlos Sainz saying he didn't see Piastri and wasn't told by his team or by his engineer that Piastri was coming. So possibly not Carlos Sainz's fault. Probably on his engineer, but they might give him something for that. Hopefully find out very, very soon. And Yuki Tsunoda on Lewis Hamilton for impeding Q2. I haven't seen that incident. I can't comment on that at all. So I've not seen whether or not that's a slam dunk or whatever. But from what people were saying, it sounds like it was a bit of, I think, Yuki impeding Lewis, and then the favour was returned or something like that. I think I heard. So I don't know. We'll find out when the decisions come in. But I feel like Lance Stroll is probably going to end up with something there. Carlos Sainz, it'd be harsh on Carlos because his engineer should have told him, but we've seen those given, haven't we, when what's the saying, you win and lose as a team. So if your engineer hasn't told you, it's not your fault, but equally you're still you're one team, aren't you? So it might still be a penalty. We'll find out soon enough. I will keep an eye on the FIA page and I will let you know as soon as they come in. I won't go over the qualifying deleted lap times because they don't really matter. Thank you to Gecko Gamer for your super chat. You can get your own super chats in if you'd like to. I always come to chat, but I have to read the super chats out as long as they follow YouTube terms. So if you've got a burning question you must ask, then pop it in a super chat, but I will try and come to chat throughout. Gecko says, do you think that Williams will start outscoring Alpine? That's a good question. Let's have a look. Where's me thingy? Leave it. Where's the 2023 list? Let's have a look. So Alpine 57, Williams 11. So at the moment they're quite a way off. So yeah, but I know that's not the question. I'm just trying to do it for my own brain and trying to do my own stuff here. Yes, at the moment Williams seem to be a team on the up. I've said this so many times about James Vowles and how well I think he's doing at that team, and the work he's doing is fantastic. So I think they're a team on the up moving forward. Everything seems to be in the right place, and the car seems to be improving. Alex Albon's doing a great job. Logan Sargeant he's making steps forward, not massive steps forward, but there's movement there. He's slowly improving. Whether or not that'll be enough to keep his seat, that's a question for another day, but we shall see. What on earth is that? Possibly a motorbike. Anyway, yes, so I think that they're a team in a really good position. At the minute, Alpine are just an absolute mess behind the scenes. There are mistakes being made on track. The car doesn't seem rapid every week. I mean, some weekends it's right up there in the top 10, and it's challenging to be the 5th best team and maybe 6th best, and they're looking good, but they really seem to have struggled lately. And I think when you've got one team moving in the right direction and one either standing still or moving backwards, there's usually only one outcome. So I would say, yes, Williams have got a shot of outscoring Alpine, this weekend. Consistently, I think Williams have got a shot at outscoring tomorrow. I think they've got a great shot at Monza because that is going to suit that Williams down to the ground. So they should do well there. Singapore might be tough for them. There are going to be tracks like that. Suzuka could go either way. Qatar might be okay for them. There are some tough tracks coming up for Williams, and that might be difficult. But I think this season, maybe not consistently. This weekend, yes. Longer term, I would rather be sat in a Williams than an Alpine right now. So I think so, yes. It's kind of roundabout way of answering your question. Eventually, yes. I think they've got a shot. It could be good. We'll close the poll in a bit. See what you guys are saying in chat. Alpine was super quick in Spa, actually, says Jonathan O'Keefe. Where's the results? Have I looked at the wrong page? It's highly probable. You know what I'm like. Yeah, but only in air quotes 8th place and 11th for somebody, whoever it was, Ocon or Gasly it was. So if it's not like they're sort of scoring 5th, 6th places. That 8th place is something Williams could nab, if that makes sense, across a weekend. I could see, maybe that's the fight. Maybe that's what we get to look forward to once everything's wrapped up at the front. Maybe Alpine versus Williams down there. And I don't see Haas, by the way. Haas are talking about the challenge for P7. Gunther Steiner didn't really come out and say, yes, they've got a shot at it, but I think he wants it. But I think, again, Williams are probably going to be looking good for 7th place, but do I see them picking up 46 points between now and the end of the season? No. So I don't think they're going to overhaul Alpine, but I think they'll progress as this season goes on. They're going to keep improving. They'll maybe outscore them at some races. Then next year could be the year they make a step forward, because I don't know what's happening at Alpine. We've been through this so many times on these streams. I can't work it out. They're an absolute mess off the track, and that's why keep your drivers, because there's no need to be messing about with that one. So I hope so. I hope so as well. I'd love to see Williams kind of do a McLaren almost and bounce back. That'd be epic to watch. What else have we got in my notes? Let's have a look here at some reaction from people. Lando Norris, P2, was asked after the session, did he have a shot at pole? He said he felt the Max was too quick, and so he wouldn't be able to take pole in the end, but described his final lap as, and I'll quote him here, one of the worst second halves of a lap I've ever driven. He was purple in Q1, if you remember, in the first sector, if you remember, on that final lap. But the final sector was horrendous from him. Again, one of the worst laps he's ever driven, according to Lando Norris. So disappointing. But I think the feeling from the interview that he had with Sky afterwards was that he could have been closer to Verstappen, but there was no way he was going to overhaul him for pole, which I think is reasonable. It's half second. I don't think, if it's one of the worst laps he's ever driven, or worst second half of the laps he's ever driven, that's a big gap, isn't it? I mean, it's closer than 8/10, which is what it was in Belgium to Leclerc. So that's something. But he could have been closer, but wasn't expecting pole position. Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz at Ferrari. Good Lord. Balance was wrong all weekend, according to Leclerc. His crash in Q3. Just understeered wide straight into the wall, and that kind of leads me on quite nicely to what Leclerc thinks the problem is this weekend. They've got massive understeer in some corners and massive oversteer in other corners, and they're struggling to find the grip, which is why they were always running off at turn 1. So a mess is what I would call it. And like I said, Carlos Sainz said he'd take P6 at the start of the session, so he's got to be happy with that one, but said honestly this weekend has been a tough one. Ferrari just, I mean, they've kind of confessed, haven't they? They're not where they want to be, which isn't a great surprise. But it's... So this is where we come to the negative, I guess. So Ferrari are a bit of a fuster cluck at the moment. you've got a car which isn't performing where it should be performing or where they wanted it to perform. You've got a lot of changes going on within, which is kind of natural when you've got a new boss coming in like Fred Vasseur, but he's new to it this year at the team. Then he's bringing his own people, so that's all going to take time to bed in. The car isn't where it should be. The drivers, I'm going to be honest, I think the drivers do okay, but I don't think they always deliver. I think the drivers make their own mistakes as well. But then you've also got the drivers trying to drive the car and coach the team on team radio. For example, Charles Leclerc today said, "Oh, for flip's sake," you can translate that yourself. Come on, now let's be on it. The traffic is the most important. Tyre warm-up, everything. This is important. This is the only priority that we have. Let's focus on that and everything will be fine. Ferrari debuted in F1 in 1950. I'm trying to work out why it's taken this long for them to understand that things like traffic and tyre warm-up are massively important and they need to be focusing on that. So it's and we're getting it in the races with, the team saying we want to box this lap and Sainz saying, no, we're not boxing, we need to stay out, and Leclerc doing the same. And you think, Fred Vasseur's the boss, but who's running things there? Because it's good that the drivers put their feedback across, and it's good that they're able to say, come on, guys, we need to step it up, or this is what I want to do on the tyres, or whatever. That's all good. But the team should be the one saying, right, let's have a look at the traffic. Where's the traffic? Right, tyre warm-up, it's important. Let's put Leclerc out there, not expect Leclerc to come over the radio and have to have that conversation. Some of you might feel like it's a good thing that you've got the drivers running things, but the drivers should be focusing on one thing and one thing only, and that's driving the car. And I'm not just, like I said, I'm not just coming on Ferrari because I've just said the drivers aren't always delivering. We go back to Canada and my rant about it at the time. I hate it when a team says, or when a driver says it's time for slicks and a team overrides them on that. That's when the driver should have the say. But that annoys me. But at the same time, Leclerc didn't put the lap in he needed to on those inters, which may have helped him through. So the drivers aren't always delivering either. Everything just seems a little bit messy at Ferrari. And I know some of you are going to come out and say, yeah, been like that for years, Sean, wake up. But it certainly feels like they're going backwards. I mean, they are literally in the championship versus where they were last year, but I feel like they're going backwards everywhere. And I really hope that whatever Fred Vasseur's plan is, because I struggle with this season for Fred Vasseur. I've said it before, this isn't his car. He didn't come in until, was it late December, early January? So his first proper year, I guess, is next year, where we can judge him on the car and his team changes. So I hope that is where things improve for Ferrari, but I'm not. I love Ferrari. I do. I also love to hate Ferrari. They're one of those teams that you kind of adore, but you just want to throttle at the same time. And that's where I am with them. But I just don't. It's kind of hard to watch sometimes. And I know this. Ferrari don't have a God-given right to be winning races and world championships, but I always feel like Ferrari should be doing better than this. But this isn't a new thing. I feel like we've discussed this. Well, Jonty's in chat. I feel like we've been discussing this, mate, since I started the channel back in 2017, haven't we? Ferrari and their flip-ups and their mistakes. It's a mess. And then today kind of reflected that. They've got a car that's oversteering too much in some corners, then understeering too much in other corners. Actually, where's that come from in my head? Just randomly there was. I think just to confirm, this isn't a new thing for Ferrari, all these problems. They were having problems, I think, 97, 98. I think Michael Schumacher, somewhere around there, was talking about oversteering, too much oversteer, too much understeer. The car just wasn't balanced right. And it's, that happens in Formula One. I'm not trying to pretend that this is a new issue for Ferrari or for any team, but that's the point I'm making there. But I can't work them out, which is fine, by the way, because Ferrari can't work it out either. So if they can't work it out, I've got no bloody chance. There's this bit of me, Michael Schumacher fan, loving that Ferrari dominance, therefore supporting Ferrari through all of that at the same time, that just, I'd love to see them up there winning races and titles. And I thought they were going to do it last year, and then it all just fell apart. So there you go. Jonty says, to paraphrase Enzo, we've gone from aerodynamics to strategy being for people who can't build engines. Yeah. I've not heard that. I know you paraphrase, but I've not heard that Enzo point before. But I don't know. Ferrari need Eccleston, Mosley, and Todd to come back, so they can get a bit of extra help. So C64, steady. Nick says, Ferrari used to have unlimited testing time, unlimited money, and unlimited CFD time, all gone. Good point. were they relying on that? Was that helping them get out of jail free, or not free, literally for millions? But well, yeah. But at the same time, they had unlimited money in 2020, and the car was absolutely bloody horrific. So, it's. I guess it's what this cost cap is doing is it's proving it's how you spend your money, isn't it? I suppose. It's not how much you've got; it's how you spend it. You can all have the same. You can spend $1 billion on your car if you want one season, but it doesn't mean it's going to be better than somebody who spent 150 million on it, because it's how you spend that money. So maybe there's a point there, but I mean, we're not going to get into cost cap today. We do that all the time. I'm always going off on it, but that's the one problem I will say. That was one of the big problems with the cost cap is it's there are teams who probably could spend that money very well and close the gap to Red Bull. By not allowing that, it's making it more difficult to catch Red Bull. So they're becoming more reliant on a big regulation change, which is, I think, didn't Charles Leclerc say at the start of the weekend that they find it's going to be very difficult to catch Red Bull before 2026? I don't know if that was the grid in general or just Ferrari, but that's going to concern a few people who are not enjoying this season. I'm enjoying it, but to be fair, the championships would be a lot better without the cost cap, says Siggy. And Rev Raven says, I have a mental image of Ferrari trying to boil milk, but they only know that if it doesn't bubble, they forgot the stove's on and it's boiling over. It's time to evacuate. You've got the mental picture right in my head now. Thank you for that. Yeah, and John to just confirm, says that was Enzo's argument against Cooper and Lotus. He soon shut up. Yes. Actually, John, you're pretty good with your history stuff as well. I'm going to throw this at you. Wasn't there a season? I feel like it was in the 70s where Ferrari didn't race for a couple of Grand Prix because they went off to sort their car out because it was so horrific. I may have dreamed that. I'm asking you, mate, because I know that you're young like me. So I'm not saying you remember that year, but I don't know if you've dug into that or anything. But do let me know if you do know, or anybody does in chat, because I've got that in my head for some reason that they did. Took a couple of races away or a race and needed to work on the car. I'm not suggesting they should do that now because they can't. They can't build a new car, can they, and work on that. So hopefully they could turn it around, Ferrari, but it's just a messy one today. But again, Carlos Sainz was pretty happy with P6. So there you go. And Charles Leclerc, I mean, he's not, it's not absolutely disastrous for him. He's still, top 10, so he's 9th place, still ahead of Logan Sargeant. So start of the weekend, I probably would have thought that Ferrari would have been around 7th, 8th place. That may be where they end up tomorrow. So there you go. That's kind of what I want to say on Ferrari. I'll close the poll in a minute. We'll do another one in a bit. But other big story, I suppose, from qualifying. I'm not going through the whole field, as you know. But the other big story, I suppose, or one of the other big stories, Lewis Hamilton, P13, knocked out of Q2. Possibly part of that impeding thing that I've already mentioned. We'll have a look at that in a minute on the FIA, see if anything's been done. Bernie Collins also says, though, it was possibly a lap too early, which I think he said a few times, actually. Drivers going a lap earlier than maybe would have been optimal, but I suppose at the same time, with the amount of red flags we've had this weekend and double wave yellows and all of that, maybe best to get the lap in anyway. So you've lost your energy and all that kind of thing, so it's not easy to put the lap in. But Hamilton did 2 fast laps at the end and the tyres overheated is what he said in Q2. So that's part of the reason why he is down there. But Toto Wolff not happy. He feels they would have been fighting at the front with both cars had Lewis got through, which, yeah, I suppose so. George Russell P3, so you'd expect Hamilton to be in there with him. So there you go. There you go. Not great for Lewis Hamilton. Not amazing for Mercedes in that respect, but I think P3 for George Russell today. Really good stuff from him. Good lap, actually. I'll be honest. It's nothing against... You're all going to think I hate George Russell now, but I did... When he went over the line and went P3 and knocked Albon down to 4th, I did sort of go, oh, F off, George. Nothing against George at all, but I was like, oh, damn it. I wanted Albon top 3. That would have been brilliant for him. Let's just have a look through my notes. I made the notes of sort of the big talking points, and then I'll come to you guys for your talking points. No further action on Alonso alleged impeding of Hamilton. That's not a great surprise. There were lots of cars involved in that one. So, yeah, if Alonso's trying to avoid cars ahead and getting held up by cars ahead, then he can't really be totally responsible for holding somebody up behind. So, no issue there as far as I'm concerned. And I think... yeah, I put Norris versus Verstappen for pole. Middle sector from Norris, not great. We've been over that one. I guess Sergio Perez is the next one, isn't it, really? While we wait to see what the FIA decide to do. So let me know your thoughts on Checo. In fact, I'll wait a second because we have got some decisions here. In fact, we've got a couple of decisions. So we'll do this one first. Then we'll come to Sergio Perez. So, stewards' decisions on Lance Stroll allegedly unnecessarily impeding car 44, which is Lewis Hamilton. No further action. Stroll was on a preparation lap and Hamilton was on a fast lap, but both approaching turn 13. Stewards observed that Stroll had stayed out of the way of several cars from turn 10 through turn 12. He then started accelerating for the next lap early enough, that's what I was wondering about, that he shouldn't have not impeded Hamilton. His speed at the apex of turn 13 was similar to fast cars at that point. However, at the exit of 13, he had not gained enough momentum and affected Hamilton's lap. In the opinions of the stewards, while Hamilton was impeded, Stroll's behaviour did not rise to the level of unnecessarily impeding, as specified in the regulations. I feel that's the first time I've heard them specify it like that. Usually it's just alleged impeding, isn't it? But there you go. And car 22, that's Yuki Tsunoda. His decision is in as well. Unnecessarily impeding car 44. Stewards have decided he was guilty as charged. And it's a drop of 3 grid positions for the next race, which is how they word it, which is obviously tomorrow's Grand Prix. I think the next race thing is to kind of get around the... was it the Marquez thing in MotoGP? I might be wrong, but I think that's to try and get around that one now to try and make sure we've not got any weird stuff going on. But yeah, so that is for tomorrow's race. Tsunoda was on the dry racing line at the exit of turn 13, preparing for his fast lap, and had not fully come up to speed and therefore impeded Hamilton. Tsunoda explained that he had been passed by another car and decided to remain slow in order to regain his gap. In the opinion of the stewards, Tsunoda clearly had the ability to stay off the line and therefore had impeded Hamilton unnecessarily. So it's a 3-place grid drop for Tsunoda. No further action on Stroll. Have we got the next one in? I think there's one more to come. We're just waiting for Oscar Piastri and Carlos Sainz on that alleged dangerous manoeuvre. So that could be in any moment. So yeah, thoughts on that. Lance Stroll, no penalty. That's what I was umming and ahhing about earlier, because when you look at the onboard of Hamilton, Stroll's definitely there. He's definitely in his way, but Stroll's not driving slowly, if that makes sense. So I was umming and ahhing about that one when I read through it a little bit earlier. The Yuki Tsunoda one, I can't honestly have an opinion on because I've not seen it. That's not a cop-out. I genuinely have not seen it. So I'm just wondering what you think about that one. So Vesk says that's kind of unfair, though, because Lance could have waited for Lewis to pass if he's unable to accelerate fast enough. Nuke Dukem says that can set a precedent. Is that the unnecessarily impeding? I'm sure. Do you know what? Actually, I'm sure that's one of the first. I feel like that's the first time I've seen it. It might not be, but I feel like that's the first time. There you go. So we've got the Yuki has 3-place penalty. The real reason we need quicker impeding decisions is to hear Yuki's radio. Fair enough, says Dell. Vesk feels like Stroll did impede Hamilton on that one, and wouldn't be too harsh on him today. No, I'll come back to that in a moment. Then on a new point there. So Stroll kind of did impede, but didn't impede badly enough. Says that's kind of it. Yeah, that's it. He's not. He has, in the eyes of the stewards, Stroll has impeded Hamilton on his lap, but not unnecessarily. He's impeded him, but not by enough for the stewards to take action, which, as has already been said in chat, potentially sets a bit of a precedent here. So I'm looking forward to coming back to this next weekend, because there'll be another one, and then going, well, how's that different? Although next year, they probably won't get the laps in, or next weekend they won't get the laps in, so they'll be battling for the toe, won't they? Like we saw a while ago. So I watched that on YouTube the other day when qualifying gets chaotic or something like that. A bit of an interesting one. What does that do for Tsunoda? That puts him down 3 places, so that's going to put him about 17th. So that's not disastrous, because he wasn't. It'd be different if he was top 10, but it sort of takes him out of the fringes of the points there in some ways, doesn't it? If he's got a challenge early on, but don't impede, I guess, is the argument there. I've not seen the Tsunoda one, so I can't really say too much. But the Stroll one, like I said, I was umming and ahhing about it, so I'm not really. If it had been a penalty, I'd probably be like, yeah, fair enough. It's not a penalty, and I sort of read it and think, well, fair enough, I suppose. But it's the precedent in our set, so they need to be careful with that one if they're going to start throwing around unnecessarily everywhere. But then we've had unsportsmanlike behaviour this year, haven't we? So maybe they're trying to. in the wake of the last few years, trying to get really specific with the regulations just to confuse us all. Why not? Free says you can impede someone when both on a quick lap, so that wouldn't be impeding unnecessarily. I guess they looked at Stroll as if he was already on his quick lap. Perhaps, yeah, that's a good point. At some point, Stroll has to accelerate to start a fast lap, so I guess it's that. He was slow though, says Raul. That's a fair point actually, Raul. There comes a point where the driver can't just keep stopping. At some point, the driver has to accelerate, and the stewards have maybe looked at that and gone, yes, he's impeded him, but he can't just keep jumping out the way. He's got to put his foot down at some point, and it's if he's already accelerating at that point when Hamilton's coming up behind, it's not like he's slowing down. Hamilton comes up behind and then he accelerates. He's kind of started to accelerate as Hamilton catches him. So it's a trick. I feel like that's a bit of a tricky one for the stewards, which is why I was umming and ahhing about it, because I wasn't sure. But I'll have a look at the Tsunoda one afterwards, and I'll let you know what I think about that in the reaction tomorrow. It's a short track, plus the DRS now makes it even more chaotic in Q1, says Mr. Bungle. It's always chaotic in Q1 everywhere. I'm beginning to wonder how long before Daddy Stroll starts to lose his patience, says James Rich. I need to do a video on that. I keep meaning to do a video on that, and then I get distracted by life, because life is just life. So, yeah. Let's not get into that one today. We've done enough of that just lately. So, I'm not sure, Vesk. I've not seen anything on that. Let me just double check the thing. Did Hamilton impede Tsunoda? I don't know if there's another one. Oh, we've got another decision in. I will. What will I do? I'll put this in the timestamp. Stewards' decisions. It's a fine of €5,000 for Ferrari, and Carlos Sainz gets a reprimand for potentially dangerous manoeuvre between turns 1 and 2 from Carlos Sainz. So I'm not going to read it all. I'll read you the paragraphs that are really relevant. So Sainz was exiting the pits and immediately moved to the racing line before turn 2. In doing so, Piastri, who was on track, had to take avoiding action and was partially forced off the track. In the opinion of the stewards, this was a potentially dangerous manoeuvre, and a crash was only avoided by the actions of Piastri. Stewards listened to Bottas radio and Sainz radio. Bottas was given ample warning of Piastri approaching. Sainz was warned not to cross the white line at the exit of the pits and was not warned about Piastri until he was already alongside. That is so Ferrari. Oh, Piastri said, yeah, no, too late, I've put him in the wall. Sainz explains he had briefly caught sight of Piastri as he was rounding turn 1 at the pit exit, engaged that Piastri was on a slow lap. From then onwards, he did not see Piastri because of the relative angle. That's the blind spot, isn't it? Stewards understand the explanation. In their opinion, Sainz rapidly moved to the line while unable to see a car that he knew was in the area, created a potentially dangerous situation. So you knew he was there. Why did you move over? I guess it's their argument. But the stewards also felt the team contributed to the situation, therefore issue a team fine. So it's a reprimand and a fine for Ferrari. Their reprimand for what's his name? Carlos Sainz. And a fine for the team. So somebody just asked if there was an alleged impeding by Lewis Hamilton. So we've got alleged impeding of car 44, and 18. That's that one. And there's nothing here about... No, we've only got alleged impeding of car 44 by car 22. So nothing about Hamilton impeding Tsunoda. So I don't know there. So they're your decisions. Just to recap for anybody just tuning in. No further action on Lance Stroll impeding Lewis Hamilton. 3-place grid drop for Yuki Tsunoda for impeding Lewis Hamilton. He was in the wars today, wasn't he? Was Hamilton. And a €5,000 fine for Ferrari, and a reprimand for Carlos Sainz, his first of the season, for driving or a potentially dangerous manoeuvre by car 55 on Oscar Piastri. So they are the decisions. There you go. Hey, M. Knox says, first stream I've caught for a while. Hope you're doing well. I'm doing very well, thank you, mate. F1's back. Oh, I hate the summer break, and I'm dreading the winter. Not quite sure I'll get through it, but yes, good to be back. So thank you very much. Good to see you. Hope you're keeping well as well. Del says, 5k fine is arbitrary anyway. Yeah. €5,000 for Ferrari. They'll find that in their back pocket, won't they? And thank you very much to Sujit for your super chat. Says the Ferrari domination in the 2000s is more down to McLaren and Williams starting to implode like Toyota dominating Le Mans with no competition. Thank you very much, mate, for your super chat. Really appreciate the support. Don't forget to drop a like, by the way. 73 likes, 319 of you here, and 290 votes on the poll. So let's get those likes well over 100 today. That'd be massively appreciated. Don't forget to subscribe as well. Race reaction tomorrow, and then it's on to Monza for the preview and everything else that comes with that one. And of course, you can support the channel with a super chat through PayPal, Streamlabs, and there's also the channel memberships and Patreon. That's the one I was thinking of. If you'd like to support the channel more long term, thank you very much for those who have. Let's close this poll. Will Albon score points tomorrow? Lots of positivity. Lovely. 90% say yes, and 9% say no. 1% have disappeared. There you go. I think I looked into this. I think it's rounding. I think it's the way that YouTube rounds, so it doesn't always round right up. So yeah, there you go. Any word on how badly banged up Sargeant's Williams was? Hope they don't need to change anything major and end up with a grid drop, says James Rich. I'll check their Twitter or X. Do you know what I can't get used to? In fact, I'll tell you what, I'll read their press release. Screw it. I can't get used to the... I'm kind of used to the app. I'm kind of used to the X on my home screen now. But it's when I see post instead of tweet or repost. It's really throwing me off. I know nobody asked, and I know really you probably don't care, but it's just really weird to me. I think as a branding decision, it's I think Twitter and tweeting was pretty cool, but there you go. Logan Sargeant, let's see what they're saying. So Dave Robson, anything on qualifying? Reasonably calm throughout qualifying until Logan had his accident in Q3. Nothing there as far as I can see from Dave Robson. Just sort of reviewing the weekend as a whole so far. It says Alex was again brilliant in the difficult conditions and was able to complete a very competitive lap at the end of the session. Starting the Grand Prix from 4th place. It's a great result for Alex and the entire team. Nothing there. Logan Sargeant, mixed emotions and is definitely bittersweet. To make Q3 is a huge thing for us. There are so many positives to take. The team and the car have been fantastic all weekend, and I delivered good laps when they counted in Q1 and Q2 to get there. Felt like we had a good chance going into the dry last session, and Alex proved that with the result. But it's fine margins in these conditions. It was fine margins, to be fair. Says need to look back at what went wrong, but not dwelling on it because our long run pace here has been great. So that's positive for Williams fans there. Long run pace is good. We'll get the car rebuilt as close as we can and try to score some points. So no word here on any gear. Like I say, it's the car didn't really hit hard at the rear, just sort of tagged it as it came round. So I'd be surprised if there's damage, but you never know with things being shaken around, do you? In that situation, so. That's where they're at. That's nothing just yet, just to let you know. But yeah, good. It's a good question. It's a fair question. So those are the stewards' decisions. They are all in, I believe, just to double check, make sure there's no more. So we've got the dangerous manoeuvre, impeding. Yeah, that's the 3. Alleged impeding as well. So that's all that sorted. So I can close that for now. Good news. So we'll have a grid soon, hopefully, a provisional grid. But that's the situation now in terms of those. So a few other things to talk about. I'm not talking about the session. I think we'll talk about the weekend as a whole and start looking ahead to tomorrow. I'll take some of your questions as well in this stage of the stream. We'll do a little Q&A as well. Probably live for a total of 90 minutes-ish. That'll give somebody a laugh later when it's 3 hours long, but you know what I mean. You know what happened. It's inevitable. So let's talk about Danny Rick and Liam Lawson. I think that's a good idea. So first things first. I've responded to a comment before the stream went live on the video I did last night. I am not happy to see Daniel Ricciardo injured, and if you believe that, you're an idiot, and you weren't listening to the video. I am not at all happy. I feel so sorry for Daniel Ricciardo, and I wish him all the best, and I hope he gets a nice speedy recovery. If he can heal in a week, I hope he's in the car next week. He's not going to heal in a week. Singapore at the earliest by the sounds of it, but it could be even longer. We'll get to that in a second. So I'm not happy that Daniel Ricciardo is injured. And again, that is an absolutely ridiculous statement, especially if you follow the channel long enough. You know how we are for safety on this channel. So not necessarily my safety. I'm not the safest person on the planet, but generally speaking, when it comes to F1, we're big on safety here. So I'm not having that. But of course, I'm excited for Liam Lawson making his debut. I've been following the lad for many years through his junior careers. I think he's absolutely fantastic. He's got so much potential. I don't know if he's a world beater. I don't know if he's a future world champion or what he'll do in Formula One. But at this stage, he's rapid and he's got potential. And I think he's quite an exciting driver. So I am very excited that he gets his opportunity, and he should be excited about that opportunity. And nobody should have to apologise, Liam Lawson or anybody else, for being excited in that situation, because it is a great opportunity for him. So to clear that up again, I hope Daniel Ricciardo can recover, but I'm going to make sort of a bit of the sort of thing my dad would say now. So I'm apologising for this because he's as I get older, I'm just sounding more and more like him. But Daniel Ricciardo hasn't broken his spine. He's not cracked his head open. He's not in a coma. He's broken his metacarpal on his hand. He will be back in that car in a few weeks. I don't know why people seem to be so annoyed at someone not discussing it for hours on end, because at the end of the day, he's going to be okay. It's just very unfortunate. So, internet overreacting. I know it's very, very weird. So that's kind of the point I make. He's not in big trouble here. He's just not going to be in the car for a few weeks, and then he'll be back and hopefully can deliver when he gets back in that car. But I'm very excited for Liam Lawson because I think it's a great opportunity for him. I think these opportunities don't always throw themselves your way, and however they come about, as unfortunate as they may be, you've got to take those opportunities. You've got to. Metacarpal, yeah. That's the one. Metacarpal, yes, that's what I'm trying to say. You know what I mean. The thing in his hand. So hopefully we're back. But the word from Christian Horner, he was interviewed by, to get back to the point, by Sky F1 during the session or after the session or before it. It was at some point today to discuss Daniel Ricciardo's situation. So he's gone to Barcelona, and it sounds like he may have to have an operation on Monday on that hand. The recovery process for what Christian Horner described as normal human beings is probably 10 to 12 weeks. However, he said that F1 drivers are not normal human beings. They don't know how long the recovery process will take. He said, will it be 3 weeks? Will it be a month? Will it be 6 weeks? We don't know. But that's what we're waiting on here. So he's also said that Daniel Ricciardo is probably targeting a Singapore Grand Prix return. He did, to be fair, acknowledge that would be a big test because Singapore is brutal. I said it last night. My speculation was he's definitely out for Monza. That's what we're hearing. Christian Horner hasn't even mentioned next weekend, so he's not going to be in the car in Monza. We're only 3 weeks away from Singapore, and it's the most demanding track on the calendar probably. It's hot, it's humid, it's 90 left, it's 90 right, it's 2 hours, it's brutal. That's a lot. That said, Alex Albon surprised us all, didn't he? Was it last year when he came back from his, I think it was appendicitis for Singapore? So, bit different, he's going to need his wrist, a lot of gear changes, a lot of turning the steering wheel. So maybe it's not going to be Singapore, but that seems to be the target. My speculation yesterday was that he'll be out for Monza, which he is. I would be surprised if he's back in the car for Singapore. Maybe Japan, they might give him that extra week, because then you've got the one opportunity is maybe back for Qatar, because you've kind of got a week off after the double header of Singapore and Japan, then Qatar, and then another week off before a triple header. So that might be, I'm not saying I want him out till then, but that might be a nice little window to come back for Qatar, because you've got a week off after a double header, then he gets back in the car for Qatar. They'll be able to gauge how he's doing, and then if it is a little bit sore afterwards, he's got a week to kind of recover a little bit more before a triple header. So it might be a good spot, but look, he's a racing driver. If he could be in that car tomorrow, he would be 100%. But I'd be surprised if it's Singapore, possibly Japan. But we shall see. I just wish him all the best, because it sucks. It really, really sucks, and it's 2 races, comes back, 2 races, gets a summer break, bit of time to recuperate, get his head in the right space, come back for this crazy 10 races in 14 weeks, and the first thing he does is break his hand. So I feel for him, it is unfortunate. But, these things happen in Formula One. That's the other thing I'll say. We all want F1 to be as safe as it can be, but it's never going to be completely safe. No motorsport is going to be. These drivers are going to crash. They're going to get hurt. We'll leave it at that, but things will happen. It's inevitable, but it's still unfortunate, and I still feel for the guy. There you go. That's my point. But yeah, sorry to start that whole thing on a moan. I just get one of the things, and if you watch the channel, one of the things I really hate is when somebody puts words in my mouth or twists what I say. It really annoys me, and the only thing that annoys me more than that is when somebody sits and just spends all their time online on streams and videos poking me, and then when I bite back, they run away crying like a dickhead. If you're going to push me for reaction, you get a reaction, take it. You've done enough to wind me up. So anyway, let's move on. Liam Lawson. interesting today. So I'm sure there are lots of people, like I said earlier, that are trying to be really clever and edgy and talk about, oh, he's 1.7 seconds off Tsunoda, oh, he's trash, he's no good. And yes, there's bias here. Yes, I'm going to defend him, and I don't care. I've spent all my time on this channel trying to be as balanced as I can. I'm going to make sure that I make it clear there's some bias involved in this next statement. But the focus, coming back to a more balanced view, I guess, is it can't be on the lap times. I don't know who's looking at that and going, right, Lawson's crap because he had an FP3 session where it was red flag, red flag, red flag, red flag, and then he's straight into a mixed qualifying session, really difficult conditions, up against a driver who's been in that car for 3 years and all of this season, and writing him off instantly. 1.7 seconds is a huge gap. Of course it is, between teammates. It's massive, but it's only 0.4 more than Perez is off Verstappen. Just saying. That just came to me there. That's not the point I wanted to make. But I think most reasonable people understand that this weekend is about him getting up to speed, getting used to the car, getting used to Formula One. It's a relatively new thing to him. He's done some FP1 sessions. Last year, of course, he did one. I think Mexico. I think he was in the car, wasn't he? So he's done FP1 sessions. He knows the team. He's part of the Red Bull Junior program, but he doesn't really know F1. He's been racing over in Japan, Super Formula, doing a cracking job apart from last Sunday where things went a bit awry. Let's put it that way. So, he's got to get used to things. He's got to get himself up to speed, get used to the car and the way Formula One operates. And to do that in one practice session, never going to happen. So this weekend, get himself settled, get himself up to speed. He knows he's got next weekend and may have more, but he's definitely got next weekend. Get out on track, FP1, 2 and 3. There's no sprint or anything at Monza, so it is just a normal weekend, so he can ease himself into it. And that's when we'll start to look at gaps to Tsunoda. But even then, I don't think, and I said the same about Ricciardo, I don't think, and he's a little bit different, Ricciardo, because he's not a rookie, but, 1 or 2 races in a car versus a driver who's been in there for 3 years, it'd be harsh to just instantly focus solely on the times. Let's look at what he does in the race tomorrow, look at how he does in Monza overall, look at his pace, see how he improves. I think that's important. And he made some points afterwards. He described the weekend so far, and I love this. Very hectic. You think? Very hectic weekend for Liam Lawson. Very tricky conditions, really, for FP3 and for qualifying. He also said he hasn't driven this inter tyre before, which I hadn't really clocked onto before the session, because he won't have done, because it's all new for this year, isn't it? And he did FP1 in Mexico and did some testing in Abu Dhabi as well last year, so he's not going to need the intermediates there. So he's probably done okay. But he said it's a track that takes a lot of confidence, and it's not easy to grab that confidence this weekend with so little time to prepare, was the point. I've kind of paraphrased that a bit, but that's effectively what he's saying there. So I don't think what he's done today is, that's not going to change my view of Liam Lawson. And you can very quickly tell on the internet who's only read his Wikipedia page and who hasn't watched him racing. And yes, that might be a bit of an arrogant statement, and you might want to throw gatekeeping at that one. I don't know, but I will, defend it. I've been watching him racing for years. And the last driver I watched racing for years was Leclerc, and I wasn't too far off on that one. And I think the one before that was Stoffel Van Dorn, and I was bang on with him. Absolutely destroyed Fernando Alonso in F1 as I sit here and try and rewrite history for my own sanity. But good to see Stoffel, by the way, in the commentary box at Sky. I did put a tweet out about that. The driver I used to rate very highly, talking about a driver I now rate very highly, is probably not going to end well, but there you go. We'll see how he gets on at Monza. I'd love to see him shock us all and score points tomorrow. I would love it. I don't think he will. I think the goal for tomorrow, and let me know what you think in chat. We can have the conversation. If you disagree, let me know. But I think tomorrow, as simple in air quotes as it sounds to us to say it, but it's not that simple because it's F1 and it's not easy. He just needs to finish the race tomorrow. I think if he has a clean race, pit stops all go to plan, no pit lane speeding, no penalties, just has a nice clean race, finishes the Grand Prix. Even if he finishes last, I think that's what he needs to do, because that's good mileage in the car. It's good experience. He's going to get a feel for, the car when it's heavy with fuel, what it's like on the tyres, and that'll all be good information for next weekend, unless, of course, it rains. So I think that, for me, is the goal for Liam Lawson tomorrow. And you probably argue the same for Monza, but to kind of do it with a bit of improvement, if that makes sense. So finish in Monza as well, but do it better than you did at Zandvoort. But I'm not expecting points and crazy stuff like that. And I'd love it, but it's not going to happen. So John T says Lawson also wasn't on a flying lap at the end of the session when lap times were improving by 0.5 as every minute went by, and Yuki improved his own time by about a second. So that's so maybe, what do you reckon? And we could knock half a second off that in theory. Obviously, it's a theory. You don't know. He might do his lap at the end and stick it in the wall, or get it wrong and still be a bit off the pace. But that's a good point, John T. Thank you for pointing that one out. Your sanity is long gone anyway, with all due respect, the F1 word, says Red Raven. Yeah. You didn't need with all due respect. You are completely accurate. I'm quite happy to say that I lost my sanity a long time ago. Somebody said the other day, my mum says, "Oh, you've lost your marbles, boy," and I just went, "You can't lose what you never had." So, goal is to finish, says Kaori. Yep, completely agree. Liam just needs to soak it all in for Monza. I was waiting for the rest of it, Zach. I was like, he needs to do what? Yeah, that's fair enough. Preferably not crash out Verstappen or Marco's eye will explode. Fair enough. I think Lawson is goal is he needs to finish the race, says Rocket. I agree. How happy were you to have Stoff on the Sky Sports booth for FP3, says Dell. Yeah, like I say, really pleased to see him there. I never really looked into how his test went, but it's good to see Stoffel out and about in F1. It's for me, and this isn't the same for everyone. For me, this is a personal thing, and that's why I'll emphasize that point. For me, that's one of my biggest disappointments as an F1 fan, was the expectation versus reality when it came to Stoffel Vandoorne. Stoffel Vandoorne is not a bad driver. It just didn't work in F1. And like I said about Nick De Vries, sometimes that just happens. Sometimes things just don't go your way and it doesn't work out, and that's fine. But he's gone on to win a world championship somewhere else. So, and he's raced well in many other series, and he won just about everything in his junior career. So he's a talented driver. It just didn't work in F1, but it's still disappointing for me because I was so on board with Stoff, and it didn't work out. Vesk says, I think the bigger problem is that Daniel didn't see the yellow flags quickly enough. I think they should definitely have the whole screen on the wheel flash yellow and have player sound in their ears. John T might like that. On the safety side of things, Vesk, it's a fair point. I mean, they do it DRS, don't they? Your DRS beeps when it's time to open it or whatever. So, in theory, they could do something like that. But I think the yellow flags were quite late. I think they came quite late on the panel, and I think it might have been transitioning between solid yellow and broken yellow, but I think it was initially yellow flags, then double waved yellow. Like I said, it might just be the transition and how it works, but it's just unfortunate. And obviously he's gone into that corner. He says, in fact, I'll tell you what. For those of you who didn't hear what he had to say, I've got the quote from his press release. He said, and I'll quote him completely here, I was very excited to be back after the break. The day was going pretty well. We made some changes for FP2, and the few laps I did on the hard before the crash felt pretty good. We were building up and improving. At that time, we were pretty competitive, and I was feeling positive. Then on the incident, he says, I remember coming into turn 3. I had already gotten into the corner and then saw Piastri, so it was either hit him or hit the wall. When I hit the wall, I didn't have enough time to take my hands off the steering wheel, so the wheel came and hit my hand. It's really unfortunate and frustrating, but I'll try to recover as quickly as I can. And then he goes on to say, and this is why I'm sort of, when Christian Horner's talking about Singapore being the goal, there's nothing, he doesn't say anything here to specifically make this point, but it feels like he's kind of preparing people for what could be a little bit longer, because he says, obviously, I'd love to get back soon, but also I want to ensure we do things the right way so I come back strong and competitive. I wish the team well, and I'm sorry for the change in plans again. And then even he goes to say it's a chance for Liam to have a go, and I wish him and the team a strong weekend. So, just that bit there about what, want to do it properly, want to come back strong and competitive. I wish the team well, and sorry for the change in plans again. I wonder if, I say that this was done last night after, he's been to the hospital, he's had the bad news. That might just be a bit of a reactionary thing. It might be a bit better today. Christian Horner's had time to sleep on it. So has Ricciardo. So maybe the view changed this morning, but that was what he said last night. So I would be very, very surprised if he's back for Singapore. Is my view on that one. So I'd like him to be. But there you go. Red Raven says, same for me and Pascal Wehrlein talking about disappointments in F1. The funny thing though is that I don't think Wehrlein was that bad in F1. I would make the argument Wehrlein did better in F1 than Van Dorn did. And I know Van Dorn had a much tougher teammate, with respect. But Wehrlein had a very difficult car and did a pretty solid job. I mean, yeah, all right, fine. Van Dorn had a bad car as well. But Will Davison says, makes sense to me. He hasn't had a chance to see his surgeon yet, so better not... put a definitive timeline on things until then. Yeah, that's fine. Like I say, it's that was last night rather than something that he said in the last half hour or anything crazy like that. So time to sleep. And like I say, see his surgeon, see how things go. I assume this doctor he's going to see in Barcelona is the same one that Lance Stroll went to, and I think Mark Marquez possibly went to as well, because there seems to be an expert over there in this sort of thing that can help with recovery. So maybe, yeah. I just hope he's okay. That's the point. But yeah, on Lawson, let's see how he gets on tomorrow. If he can finish the race and then kind of improve through the weekend in Monza, then I think he'll do pretty well. Singapore's going to be tough for anybody in that car. I see if Lawson said anything actually very quickly. I think this is all just going to be what he said in his press interview. I don't think there's anything. Yeah, tricky conditions, very hectic. First time driving intermediate tyres during the first session. Different to what I expected, but I felt I was getting somewhere and learning how the tyres behaved. I felt comfortable during qualifying, was gaining a lot. Then it rained again and expected the grip to drop, but was surprised by how high it stayed. So for sure, I didn't maximise everything. So the Inters keep their grip, which we kind of knew anyway, didn't we? Feels good physically, but with wet track conditions, it's not as physically demanding as a dry, so I expect it to be more tough during the race. Track is definitely a tricky one, bumpy in some places and takes confidence, which is difficult for me to pick up so quickly. If it's dry tomorrow, I'm going to be learning many new things because I haven't driven the car in fully dry conditions yet. That's a good point as well. So there we go. What I've also realised, side point, is that the press releases that the teams put out are transcripts of what they say in their media pen interviews. They're not usually on a Sunday. There's usually a bit more in there, but after Saturday, I've just realised that's exactly what he said in the media pen to Sky. So there we go. You learn something new every day. Makes sense, I guess. There's no point, unlike me, repeating yourself constantly. What are you guys saying in chat then about Lawson, Ricciardo, the situation there? And then we'll do a bit of looking ahead to tomorrow with some Q&A at the same time, and then we'll wrap up in about 20 minutes or so. Imagine if Pascal got the Merc seat instead of Valtteri. Jake. No. With hindsight, terrible idea. At the time, wasn't the worst idea. Valtteri's back end of 2018 was pretty bad. So at the time, it was a possibility. He was in that list. I know you're talking about 2016, but I think 2018, Bottas maybe being replaced by him, but he wasn't great back end of 2018. Maybe at the time it was a possibility, but with hindsight, no. I'll make that point straight away. You just know that the battle for the number 2 Red Bull just heated up, or at least the speculations have. Speculations at the moment around that kind of thing. There's some absolute BS out there, which is so obviously BS. Lance Stroll's come out, by the way. I didn't see the rumour, but apparently he was on the brink of quitting F1 to go and play tennis. Yeah, Lance Stroll has dismissed that since he said it this weekend that he enjoys tennis, but he's not going to be taking on the likes of Djokovic and co. And it's racing. He loves racing, and that's what he wants to do. So there you go. I saw that somebody commented, I think, on a preview, and I was like, really? Perez to tennis? Not Perez. Stroll to tennis? Not seen that one. Read up on it and just went, that's nonsense. If you actually read the article as well, there's a lot of, and you get this in the summer break, and I always like to warn people about it before the summer break, and I forgot to, and I'll do it in the winter as well. A lot of you know what I mean. You'll get a lot of articles from people who are desperate for clicks going, Ralph Schumacher said, this could happen, this might happen, this should happen, or some ex-driver says this could, or whatever, and it's a lot of could and possibly and maybe. A bit like the sale of Manchester United, there's a lot of this could happen, or this might happen, or whatever, and people take it as gospel, but anyway, let's not get into that one. James Rich says Sean will wrap things up in about 20 minutes. Also, Sean 1 hour later. Yeah, we'll probably end up at the 2 hours. We always do, but 90 was what I wanted to go for the Saturday one, so we'll try and do it. Is Daniel's absence good or bad for Yuki? If he beats Daniel, many will say it's because of missing races missing races or his injury. I mean, Yuki did well in Belgium, didn't he? Beat him across qualifying in a race. So I don't think it makes any difference to Yuki's position, honestly, because I think the noise is from Helmut Marko, and I know you can't always believe what he says, but usually when he speaks very positively about a driver, that driver's pretty secure for a little while at least. So I think Tsunoda's place is pretty nailed on, so I don't think it really matters about his AlphaTauri future, I suppose. But if you're thinking about maybe a step up to Red Bull, it might impact him if he's with as much as I like the guy, if he beats Liam Lawson, nobody's going to be massively surprised, are they? So that's not really something that will go for him or against him. But if he beats Ricciardo, maybe that goes better for him than beating Nick de Vries. And maybe that would put him in the frame for the Red Bull seat. But there's so many interesting rumours flying around about, again, I said it in my video a couple of weeks ago, about next year's driver market. Nobody seems to be, a lot of the noise is basically that maybe we'll get a change at Williams. Possibly they'll get a change at AlphaTauri, but pretty much everything's staying as it is. And everyone's talking about next year with Sainz and Leclerc and Alonso and Perez and co all being out of contract. You think, God. And the next year's going to be bonkers. Can't wait for it. Why is no one talking about Yuki to Red Bull? Says Clay. I sort of mentioned it there. The most interesting rumour to me is Yuki to Aston Martin for 26 with the Honda switch. That's the rumour that I've got an eye on, because I think that's a really interesting one. It's whether or not it's what's harmonious for Red Bull and Max Verstappen, really, isn't it? Michael Schumacher and Ferrari, they were never going to go and put Mika Hakkinen in that car alongside him, or somebody maybe a bit more hot-headed, I guess is what I'm saying. You want somebody there who's going to do as they're told, effectively, at Ferrari at the time, and I guess to Red Bull to a lesser extent. But you want somebody there who's going to be harmonious within the team as much as you can be in Formula One. That's why when you think about Fernando Alonso to Red Bull, I don't see it. And Yuki Tsunoda is rapid, and I think he'd make a good second driver at Red Bull. But do they want someone there who's a bit hot-headed alongside Max? In case, I'm not saying that he's going to start running into it, but it's about harmony. Max is the number one driver. That's it. So you want somebody there who isn't going to rock the boat too much, and I could see Tsunoda maybe rocking the boat a little bit. So that's not a negative on Tsunoda. I quite like the idea of him going to Aston Martin for 26, either in place of Alonso or replacing Stroll with somebody else coming in, or Alonso stays. I don't know. But it's an interesting point. It's a very interesting point. I'm a mega Perez hater, but I doubt Yuki would be any better, says Dell. Nick Surface says, poor Checo, a little worried about him now, but I still think Red Bull want the Mexican market. He's still safe. Christian Horner says he's staying for next year. Christian Horner also said there were no plans to replace Gasly mid-season. So I think if Christian Horner was making the decision 100% on his own, Perez is in that car next year. Helmut Marko has said that nobody is 100% safe because that's the nature of Formula One, but also Perez needs to perform in qualifying. He hasn't today. That's where we need to go in a moment. But just changing my name. Thank you very much for your super chat. It says, is Leclerc overrated? Just a thought experiment. But if he was in a Williams, I feel people would talk about replacing him due to his crashing, even given his occasional great middle pack result. What do you think? Thank you very much for your super chat. Just changing my name. I think I've kind of talked on this a little bit before. I think I did a video on it as well, actually. But I don't think he's overrated. He's made a lot of mistakes. Some of those have been ironed out, which is good. But I think he's in a team at the moment that just isn't going in the right direction, and I think it's not good on him. It doesn't look good on him, even though he's doing not a huge amount wrong. He makes his mistakes, of course he does, but I don't think he's overrated. I take your point now. If he's further down the grid and he's crashing it every weekend, then maybe. But at the same time, it's not like he's involved in. I mean, he's had a crash today, but it's not like he's crashing all the time. Johnson's just summed that up in a sentence. He's not overrated, but he's definitely underperforming. It's a very fair point, and it's a good point, but at the same time, the whole team is underperforming. So if you give him, I mean, as we saw earlier last year, you give him a car capable of winning a race, he'll win a race in it. He was leading the championship. I know Red Bull reliability, but 40-odd points clear of Verstappen after Australia last year because he was winning races. But then reliability started to turn and strategy started to turn and Ferrari started putting hards on when hards made no sense at all, and it all just fell apart, and then they had to turn the engine down because it kept blowing itself up. And then you come to this season, and it's just seems to be getting even worse. So I find it hard to judge Leclerc in some ways, because whilst Jonty's bang on, the whole team is completely underperforming. And I think, okay, I'll throw this one to chat and to comments later. It kind of depends on what you think of Carlos Sainz in a way. Do you think Carlos Sainz is overrated or underrated? Or do you think he's rated just about what he is? Because Carlos Sainz, I think, is doing a pretty decent job in that car this year. He's not. I don't think either Ferrari driver is setting the world alight at all. I think both of them are underperforming this year in a team that is generally underperforming. But I think Sainz is doing all right. Perfectly rated. I like that, Del. He's perfectly rated. Yeah, that's the question, I guess. If you think Carlos is a terrible driver, then yes, Leclerc is overrated because he's doing all right. Sainz. If you think Sainz is a world beater, and one of the best drivers on the grid, then Leclerc is not overrated. He's doing an amazing job, if you see what I'm saying. So that's a long-winded way of basically agreeing with the point Jonty's making there, but also making the point that Ferrari are underperforming too. But Perez, that's what I was going to come to. Sergio Perez, thank you for your super chat again, mate. Sergio Perez, we haven't really touched on it enough. P7 today, 1.3 off his teammate. Now, I have defended Sergio Perez a lot, and I will continue to a point, of course. But I have no problem with Sergio Perez being second on the grid to Max Verstappen. He's not a Max Verstappen. He's not anywhere near that level. He never has been. That's not where he is. You put him in that Mercedes alongside Lewis Hamilton, he wouldn't be on his level either. I don't think he'd be on the level of Fernando Alonso in an identical car. I just don't think he's there. But there comes a point where, whilst I'll defend him, I have to turn around and say 1.3 seconds, even if your teammate is Max Verstappen, 1.3 seconds is bad. That is bad. That is not good enough. Now, I'm going to have a look now, see if he's got a press release, that if he's explained why he's so far off his teammate. I don't know. If you know of why, please do let me know. But I'm not, if I'll tell you, I'll go to Twitter. I'll literally do it before I make my point. But I don't think that's acceptable. And I sort of said it last year as well. I kind of feel like he should have been P2 in the championship last year. And although he is P2 in the championship this year, he needs to be sorting his qualifying out badly, because it's all right. I'll always use the same. You know what line's coming. The points are scored on a Sunday. So long as he's scoring points and getting podiums, does it matter? You could argue no. However, there's going to come a point where, with McLaren improving and Mercedes improving, and if Ferrari improve, where suddenly it's harder for him to get through the field and those podiums start to dry up and he doesn't start delivering on a Sunday, then he's got problems. He needs to be qualifying. I mean, I'd argue front row. I think he should be P2 every weekend. If Max Verstappen is on pole by half a second, Perez should be 0.3 behind him in second place. Should be. Easy to say from my chair in my little office at home. I know that's easy for me to say, but that's how and on a Sunday he should be there as well. If he finishes 15 seconds behind Max Verstappen, whatever, doesn't matter. He should be P2. He's not going to beat Verstappen on pure pace most of the time. But the reason I defend Perez so much is just because of there's a lot of recency bias around it. It's a point I made in my predictions video a couple of weeks ago. A lot of people saying that Ricciardo should replace Perez, completely ignoring the good job that Perez has done at Red Bull over the last 2 years, or the good jobs he has done at Red Bull over the last 2 years, and forgetting the crap 2 years that Daniel Ricciardo had at McLaren. And that's what I mean by recency bias. Bad qualifying, yes, he has been. He went on a bad run of qualifying, but he's also picked up results in those situations. 6th place at Silverstone, for example, 3rd place at the Red Bull Ring. I know 6th place at Silverstone doesn't sound amazing, but it's a tricky track to overtake on, so I think he did okay. 3rd in Hungary, 2nd in Belgium with better qualifying, but he's still getting results. And as long as he's outscoring the driver who's 3rd in the championship, that should be enough to keep him his seat. But that's not going to work long term, I guess, is the point I'm making. You can't go into next season doing that, because teams will inevitably improve and close the gap, and that's when you start to fall away. So maybe that's what Helmut Marko's getting at in a way, is saying, and Christian Horner saying he's safe for next season. Maybe Marko's saying, well, he is, but at the same time, we need to know that next season, when everybody else improves and closes the gap a bit, that he's going to get these results next year. If not, we need to move somebody up. But the problem is, who? Who do you put in that car? If you're Helmut Marko, who do you put in that car? Before you answer, okay, hear me out. Who do you put in that car that you know absolutely for sure will do as good a job or a better job than Sergio Perez? We don't know if Daniel Ricciardo is going to do that. He was, apart from his win and a couple of really good results, he was poor for McLaren for 2 years. Yuki Tsunoda is looking rapid, and that's great, but that's in an AlphaTauri. We don't know how he's going to perform in a Red Bull. If you've got if you want a second driver who's going to deliver results for you, how you don't know how good Lawson's going to be. He might be absolutely wonderful. He might be a flop. We don't know. So this is kind of the situation, and I feel it's kind of like a few people said to me, why didn't Haas upgrade Kevin Magnussen? Who to? Who is there available who you know for sure, if you're Haas, is an upgrade on Kevin Magnussen? It's not Théo Pourchaire, because you don't know that he is. A team like Haas need that experience and consistency, and they want to know that they're not going to end up in another situation with like a Mazepin or a Schumacher. They want to know that they've got a driver who's better than what they've got. And I don't really see who's out there who's available who is better than Kevin Magnussen in that Haas, or who would want to drive that Haas who's better than Kevin Magnussen. Of course, Stoffel Van Dorn. We know Stoffel Van Dorn's better than all of them. I mean, Max who? Stoffel more like it. But, Albon has been put in a couple of times. But at the same time, he's tied down to Williams. They can't get him out of that contract. He's got a very tight contract at Williams. And all right, fine, Red Bull come knocking, then maybe a deal can be done. But then you're going back to a driver that you've already given an opportunity to. It's, Alex Palou, a couple of names. But again, you don't know that Alex Palou can do a better job than Perez because he races in IndyCar. IndyCar's a great series. If you haven't watched it, definitely watch it. It's very entertaining. Alex Palou's doing a great job. But you don't know he's going to come straight into F1 and adapt perfectly and be brilliant. He could go the way of other drivers that have come over from other series and hop into the car and be dreadful. You don't know. So that's the point I'm making. If you're Red Bull and you've got Perez tied down to a contract next year, you don't know that anybody you move up, whether it's Tsunoda or Ricciardo or Lawson or go and get Palou or whoever, is going to be better than what you've got. So why not wait? I'm getting there. Why not wait until next year when the likes of Leclerc and Sainz and Alonso and co are available, when you've got more choices, drivers who you could maybe look at and say, I'm not saying Leclerc or Sainz or Alonso will be in the Red Bull, but I'm making a point there are a lot of drivers available next year. So why not just hang on and go, Perez is doing fine. As long as he's scoring the points on a Sunday and he doesn't finish below P2 in the championship, that's fine. But next year, we've got all of these drivers available who are out of contract. We'll have another year to see how Tsunoda gets on. We'll see what Ricciardo can do if he stays. Then we'll make a decision. That, to me, makes the most sense. But again, as I said in that video, F1 doesn't always make a lot of sense. So it's difficult. It's. I hope I'm getting this across properly, because I'm sure I'm not. I'm sure I'll get a load of grief for it later, like I'm defending him too much. But I'm just saying, if you can't guarantee that a driver you replace Perez with is better than Perez, then why would you do that when you know you can wait 12 months and then go and get somebody who's available if Perez doesn't step it up? Especially when you think that Verstappen's probably going to win the championship next year pretty comfortably as well. They've got the car to do it. The car's still going to be the quickest next year. I have, this could come back and bite me in the arse, but I have no doubt whatsoever that Red Bull will still be the fastest car next year. So you don't need to make a knee-jerk reaction now, because otherwise you get back into the Gasly Albon situation where you're just throwing drivers in because you don't know what to do. Let's just keep Perez, see how he does. If he doesn't step it up by the end of the year, then you keep him for 2024, but you make it clear to Christian Horner, you're not re-signing him, you need to go get somebody else, and that's when you go and look for other drivers. Plus, like I say, maybe they'll make a decision on Tsunoda then. Maybe Ricciardo will absolutely destroy Tsunoda in the AlphaTauri next year or whatever they're called. You don't know. That might make them force their hand there. Maybe they do fancy Verstappen and Alonso in the same car. I'm not sure that's a wise idea, but they might fancy that. So I hope you get the point I'm making. If not, then yeah. Red Raven says, congratulations on jinx the whole of the Netherlands. Yep, that's me. Hated next year when Max Verstappen finishes third in the championship. But yeah, that's just the point on that. I don't think Perez, on today, not good enough. He needs to step that up. That gap, the gap to Verstappen, to me, should be around 0.3 of a second. It's his third year in that car, but also, I don't think there's any need to make a knee-jerk reaction on replacing him when you haven't got somebody who you know for sure is a step up. Is kind of my point, especially if you've got such an exciting driver market next year. And just for the record, would love to see Alex Palou get a shot. We'll see. I think, didn't Zach Brown on Alex Palou say today that he'd be lucky to get a break in F1 without McLaren or something like that, was my point. But yeah, Sarah says Perez keeps up with Max when no one else can. Norris is doing so now, but Perez is just fine. It's hard to be under Max and people see how good you'd be doing. I think I've kind of made the point on that myself. I don't think he's not. I'm not expecting him to beat Max, and anybody who thinks he's going to beat Max isn't paying attention. Nobody's beating Max in that car. Perez, Tsunoda, Ricciardo, Lawson, they're not going to end off. But at the same time, 1.3 seconds is too much. That is too much of a gap. And I know conditions were difficult. We know that Perez, as we found out this year in Austria and other places, doesn't always qualify well in these mixed conditions. It's about tomorrow that matters in this instance. But I guess the point is he's got to recover tomorrow. So I know the point you're making. I've kind of made the same point. But at the same time, 1.3 is too much. That can't be a consistent thing. If he does it this weekend because of the conditions, it just doesn't go his way, and the next weekend he's 0.3 behind and consistently around 0.3 behind for the rest of the season, that's fine. As far as I'm concerned, that's fine. It's Max Verstappen. It's like Bottas. Bottas used to qualify really well against Lewis Hamilton. I know people hate the Bottas-Perez comparison, but it's the best one we've got in recent times. But he used to qualify quite well against Hamilton, but he'd be sort of 2 or 3 tenths off, and people would be like, "Oh, that's not good enough." And you think, well, it is Lewis Hamilton, though. Do you know what I mean? That's not a huge gap to a driver like that. But yeah, I think we kind of agree largely. But Bert Mylander says, James Rich, why not? Also, 2018 when Ricciardo at Red Bull as Verstappen teammates, he has engine issues. Says Rocket. Red Bull should just start rotating all the F2 prospects into the AlphaTauri seat. If the other guy performs worse, he's out. Max 2 years at AlphaTauri, and then you go to Red Bull or out too. Dell wants some action. He wants some action in this driver market. He wants some chaos. Damon Hill was 1.6 seconds slower than Senna in 1994 Brazilian Grand Prix qualifying. Yeah, and that's kind of the point I'm making as well, Nick. It's a one thing, isn't it? That if he doesn't do this consistently, then it's an anomaly. But he's also not been great in qualifying lately either. But sort of on your point there, that again, that's one example. I don't know what the guy. I haven't got all the stuff open in front of me, and I'm going to be honest, I don't know if I can be bothered. Where is bad qualifying? Let's see. So he was pretty bad in Silverstone, wasn't he? Let's be honest. For one reason or another. So qualifying in Silverstone, best lap in Q1 was a 29.9. He was half a second slower than Verstappen there, but overall, I know the session improved, but getting on for 3 seconds off, but that doesn't really matter, does it? That's in the same sessions. That's half a second. Feels quite tight in there. So I think 0.3 feels right to me. 2.5, 0.3. But it's if he's 1.3 off next weekend and 1.3 off in Singapore and 1.3 off in Japan, is it Japan after Singapore? Yeah, it will be. Then it's an issue. But that's not acceptable. I guess that's what I should have said at the start of the point I was making, because not everyone will listen to that waffle, and now I'm going to get a load of grief. But 1.3 seconds consistently is not good enough. So he can't afford to do this every weekend if he wants to definitely keep that seat long term at Red Bull and into next season at the very least. But tell me if you disagree. 0.3. I think 0.3 sounds about right. Within 0.3. That's how I feel. Nick says, I do fear for Checo. Agreed. I just don't always trust what, because I believe that Christian Horner probably didn't have any plans to replace Pierre Gasly mid-season, but I think Helmut Marko decided there had to be a change. Whereas with De Vries, it feels like it was more Horner that didn't want De Vries, even though he's not manager of that team, which is really interesting, and wanted to get Ricciardo in there. So that feels weird. But I think on Perez, I think Horner really does want to keep him for next year and would prefer to keep him. It's whether Marco can just control his trigger finger, basically. Look, as of today, even though he's qualified badly, 1.3 seconds off his teammate, I would keep Checo for next year. I would 100% keep Checo for next year. However, I wouldn't commit to beyond the end of 2024. And I probably, even if he's doing a really excellent job next year, I probably wouldn't sign him up until maybe we've got a few races left, 3 or 4 races left in the season. Because, correct me if I'm wrong, but Perez is a driver. Bottas used to do it. Again, the Bottas-Perez thing, but Bottas used to do it. They'd be really good, then they sign a contract and fall away a bit. I feel like Perez is a driver who, when he's fighting for his life, is absolutely brilliant. I mean, look at back end of 2020 when he thought he wasn't going to be on the grid anymore. Got himself a Red Bull seat. That's not easy to do. So maybe I'd keep him for next year and then sign him up if he performs towards the end of 2024. If he doesn't, then I'd be looking at somebody else. I don't know who that other person is. Maybe Alex Albon. Maybe it should be Alex Albon if he keeps delivering like he did today. But let's leave it there on Perez. I'll tell you what, we are going to overrun a little bit. If you've got any questions, throw them my way. If not, we will wrap it up for this evening because I'm back tomorrow with the race reaction, of course. So, but we'll leave it there on Perez. I'll go away again just to reiterate the point for anyone coming in late and I should have explained it better. You know what I'm like. I don't script these. I do these completely off the top of my head because what's the point in scripting them? I may as well do a video. But 1.3 seconds consistently is not good enough from Perez. He can't be doing that all the time. That's the point there. What do you think about Massa suing the FIA for Crashgate? That laugh probably gave that away. I think it's the first step to trying to get 2008 results overturned. That's from C64. Very quickly, I could probably talk. Do you know, if I'd love to do a stream with Jonty on this because we love a bit of this kind of thing. I'd love to talk about it with him. But the Singapore 2008 thing, it stings. Not from Massa's side, but just for F1 in general. That whole thing, at the bare minimum, and I know Fernando Alonso did nothing wrong, but the only reason he won was because his team literally cheated and fixed the race. As much as I like Alonso, particularly new Alonso, as I'm calling him, that win should not count. That win should be taken off him and they should have been completely thrown out of that race. It's not his fault, but the only reason he won was because his team cheated. That's my big bugbear with that. The problem Massa has, first of all, it's 2023, but first of all, Bernie Ecclestone's already saying he doesn't remember saying that. Now, Bernie Ecclestone is a bit of a shit. Let's be honest. Excuse the language if that offends you. I do apologise. But he is. He likes to stir the pot. He's always been... He sold the sport to Liberty Media, and he's always been quite salty about that. So you can never completely believe what he says. The other problem Massa has got is the only other person who can corroborate that story from Bernie Ecclestone is Max Mosley, and he's dead. So there is the evidence. If there will be absolutely, Bernie Ecclestone's not stupid. There will not be any kind of paper trail. It will have been in a living room somewhere. Bernie and Max Mosley sat down going, that was rigged. We know it is. Let's not say anything. There'll be no evidence to cover that. And the only person who can corroborate that is Max Mosley, and he's no longer with us. So there's just no way I see that going anywhere. Maybe there'll be a payoff. Maybe that's what Massa is angling for. I don't know, but it feels like a bit of a... Is futile the right word? Futile exercise or endeavour? I wouldn't nullify the race. I would not null and void the race because you're then stripping Lewis Hamilton of a world championship, and he did absolutely nothing wrong that day either. He did less wrong than Fernando Alonso, who also did nothing wrong. But I would take the win away from Alonso. And all you're doing is bumping people up, and I think Hamilton wins the championship by a slightly larger margin then. I think he moves up to P2, I think. Let me just have a quick check. Welcome to the F1 Word 2008. But yeah, let's go back to 2008. I should get some nice, like that wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey music, shouldn't I? or the TARDIS noise, and we'll go back to 2008. So Singapore, yeah, Hamilton finishes third, so he would move up to second place. Massa only moves up to 12th, so Hamilton still wins the championship, and he's not penalised. So that's why I would not rule it out. He just wins it by a bigger margin, or not rule it out. Completely nullify it. I wouldn't null and void it, but I would say I mean, they're not going to, and I don't think they should now. It's 2023. But at the time, I think or a year later when that all came out, I think the win should have been taken away from Renault and Alonso, even though Alonso did nothing wrong because it was cheating that got him there by the team. So, but it doesn't change the championship. I would not, no, Vesk, I would not null and void it because it's you're penalising a lot of people there for nothing, aren't you? Really? But yeah, no, I don't think anything will come of it. I think it's maybe he's angling for a payout. Maybe that's where it'll go. But you know, you're effectively in a position where it's Bernie's word against Massa's, and the only person who can change that is Max Mosley, who's no longer with us. Do you know what I mean? So, but yeah, maybe that's John says just say when. So maybe we'll do that. Maybe we'll get a Wednesday. We'll get a Wednesday together, John T, if you're up for it, and we'll sit down and we'll talk about it. We'll just give our thoughts on it and have a bit of a waffle about it, and I'll look into it a bit more and see if there's any more quotes and see what Bernie said and what he didn't say, and look back at the time, look back at it and our memories of it, and go from there. Maybe do a proper reminiscing waffly stream, bit of a chat. That'd be nice, actually. It's been a long time since we've done one of them, so there we go. So let's just see what you guys are saying very quickly, and then I'm going to wrap it up for tonight. Knowing the FIA, they're going to troll by giving lifetime bans to them for the passes to the Miami Grand Prix. That's worse than a lifetime ban. Nick says, think I'm the only one that wasn't that bothered by Crash Gate 2008. It was illegal and unethical, but still respect the tactical use of a slow teammate. I think a lot of people will agree with you, but I'm sort of smirking, as you can probably tell at that. It's like the tactical use of a slow teammate. Maybe McLaren should have done it with Heikki Kovalainen a little bit, although he's like the 7th fastest F1 driver of all time, isn't he, apparently? Who has more power at Red Bull, Christian Horner or Helmut Marko? Helmut Marko, 100%. 100%. If Alonso gets thrown out of Singapore 08, would become Rosberg's maiden win. Oh, yeah. I would, wouldn't it? Yeah. Could we have the podium then? Do we get the podium again? We get to do some proper... Oh, he was second, yeah. Of course he was, yeah. Yeah, I remember it now. I see it now. Yeah, see the podium. Thing is, with how cursed that second seat is, there is no certainty on who to pick. You could get Schumacher, Vettel, Hamilton, Alonso in that car, and there is a non-0% chance that it will fall apart. That says Red Raven, I think, assuming you're talking about Red Bull there. I would have said Marko when Massachusetts was still there, but now I think it might depend on who has the better relationship with Minslav. I can't say his name. You know who he is. Thoughts on Joe's reported funding issues that have allegedly put Porsche and Drugovich into contention, says Jake. So I'll answer that one super quickly. I hadn't read anything about it. Honestly, Jake. So I hope there isn't a funding issue, because the Chinese Grand Prix is back next year, and that you'd have thought that whoever his sponsors are would want to back him quite a bit for that seat, given that China's back on the calendar. The only thing I would say, though, so I'll be careful because I haven't read anything on it, but what I will say, though, even if the sponsorship dries up, that team is not dependent on that money anymore, if that makes... So Audi have come in, invested big money. They've already handed money over. They've paid what they need to for the team. They're investing for the long term. So long as Zhou performs, he outqualified Bottas today, by the way, but so long as he performs and consistently performs, I think they would still put him in that seat for next year, funding or not. But obviously, they prefer the money than not to have the money. But I think I would definitely... I'd keep him. I've said that. I'd definitely keep him. But yeah, I'll read up on that. Maybe speak at me again tomorrow when I've had a proper look at it. Definitely. I'll believe the Chinese Grand Prix is back when the race starts, says Yori. Yeah, we're going to leave it there then. If you have got a question that I haven't actually answered today, that's specific to the weekend, I'm live again tomorrow night. We can do that, and it sounds like we've got a stream coming up in the near future with John T as well. So we'll have a sit back and do that. But I only want it to be 90 minutes. It's been an hour and 40, so that's gone well as usual. But yes, 90 minutes on a Saturday. God knows how long on a Sunday. That's what we'll do as the new rules for these. But I guess my summary of the day and the weekend's events. excellent from Albon. So happy to see him up there. Great performance. Perez can't afford to be 1.3 seconds off every weekend. He needs to step that up and can't be doing that too much. Ferrari are a mess, which is not really any news to anybody. And best wishes to Daniel Ricciardo, but what an opportunity to Liam Lawson. I could have just done that and then the stream would have been over like an hour and a half ago. How good would that have been? Not for you guys that want to listen. Absolutely not. But that is it for this one. Like I say, gonna choke. I'll be back tomorrow. What time's the race tomorrow? 2 o'clock UK time, I believe. So probably live about 5 p.m. So I'll just double check the time for tomorrow. So 2 o'clock for the race, yeah, UK time. So I'll be live about 5-ish tomorrow, depending on red flags and things like that. And we will talk about the race and probably answer some more questions as well, I am sure. I will be solo again for that one. Finding guests is an absolute ball ache. So probably going to be one-man podcast style for most of these now. But, you know, you subscribe for me, I'm sure you can find out what other people think on their channels. But anyway, let's not get into that one. Yeah, so solo tomorrow for that one as well. Looking forward to the race. Really looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a pretty decent Grand Prix. Obviously, behind Max, he's probably going to disappear with it, but we shall see. You never know, and all of that. You can follow me on socials. Please do drop a like as well. Appreciate that. 246 still here, 115 likes. A few more likes is always appreciated. And of course, don't forget to subscribe as well if you are new, so you don't miss out on future content. Just to confirm, race reaction tomorrow around 5 p.m. Unless there's some big news, and it would need to be big news, between Sunday and Thursday. Then it's the preview on Thursday. And then, of course, we'll be doing the Quali Waffle for Monza and the race reaction as well. But as ever, thank you for watching. I've been Sean. This has been the F1 Word. And until next time, goodbye.